Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on this Thursday edition where we cover all the local sports of the Northeast, New York, Boston, and Philly. You can follow us live on Mac Sports Facebook page. Just go to username at MacMan62 on Facebook search, and it'll bring you right to us. Also, Google the Mac and Jack Sports, and you'll find us live on YouTube and Twitch. And you can even see our past shows at YouTube. Like, follow, share, and subscribe where you can, and help us keep growing. I'm Mac with my co-host, legendary boxing sports reporter Jack Hirsch, former president of the Boxing Writers Association and sports historian Gatekeeper. How you doing today, my New York friend?
Hey, it was an entertaining night last night. How am I doing today? I'm doing fine, and you rarely see a game with so many mistakes as you saw in last night's Giant Eagle game. But we'll talk about it, later. Get on to it. It'll be a big part of our show, of course.
We definitely will. And Jack, today on the show, we have scheduled Byron Williams, our NFL analyst. Byron will be traveling today. He's got a place to go. He's going to try and come on. If his Wi-Fi reception is good, he'll be on at 8:30. And then we got Keith Engle, our Patriots insider friend, podcast host of TGI Sports. So he'll be in to give us a breakdown of what's going to happen with the Patriots, how they're doing, and looking forward to the next game. So, Jack, there was no World Series last night. Not a lot of sports news out there. A few things, but the big thing was the Thursday night football game between the Giants and Eagles last night. Before we get to the game itself, I want to say something about the commercials, Jack. I mean, I go to watch a football game. I want to see more football game than commercials. I know that the NFL has to make money, but when you're watching a commercial like that white Hummer truck that was in there, I don't even want to name what it was, and talk about oversell. I mean, the commercial was longer than a halftime show, and it's kind of disappointing. It almost makes me not want to watch the game. And that really bothers me. Like I said, I know they got to make money, but come on, So if you're a Giant fan, you're very disappointed. If you're an Eagle fan, you've got to be very happy how they came back and won the game. The Eagles led at halftime 10-7. The Giants came back in the second half, jumped out to a 21-10 lead. The Eagles come back and win 22-21 on a great pass from Wentz to the little running back Scott to win with 40 seconds left. And as you said in the beginning, Jack, it was a sloppy game, but it was competitive. It was entertaining. And I don't know, you saw Jones with a big run. He trips and falls. Shepard has a good game. Slayton was absent. The running game is still not close to being ready. And Ingram, who is a great athlete, Jack. I mean, he's hurt most of the time, and he has a problem, it seems, catching the ball in key situations. 5 times Jones has targeted Ingram, and there's been 5 interceptions. So I don't know. I think the Eagles side of the ball wins, though he made some bad decisions, Jack, on some throws. He has to start making big changes in his decisions. He takes a little too many chances, which is okay sometimes when you have a great team. The Eagles are not a great team right now and will lose games because of that. But he did make a couple impressive throws down the end, Jack.
You could say Wentz played like a warrior in a certain sense. He kind of willed this team to victory. Not that he played so well. He made his share mistakes and so on. And so many mistakes made all game. I mean, so many things stood out. I mean, Wentz started the game very well. The first 2 plays of the game, he really got it going, got Deshaun Jackson involved. Deshaun Jackson had missed the prior 3 weeks because of a hamstring injury. And ironically, he got injured again in this game. And who knows how long he's going to be out for. For the Giants, yeah, it was a heartbreaking loss. But I really think this season they're being given a pass. They're 1-6 now. A few of their losses, they could have actually won those games. By next season, they're expected to close these games out. I mean, no excuse yesterday. You're up 21-10 with a few minutes left in the game and to let that game get away. And you mentioned Evan Ingram, for example. Wentz hit him with Daniel Jones hit him with a near perfect pass. He dropped the ball. Had he caught it with a couple of minutes to go, it would have kept the chains moving, and that would have been it. The Eagles wouldn't have had the chance to get the last touchdown to overtake the Giants. And so many things. I could go on and on with the mistakes made by both teams. It went even with the coaches, with Doug Peterson. He was hesitating and throwing a challenge flag once in the challenge. He would have won late in the game. And by the time he threw the flag, the next play it started. So the challenge flag didn't start. Even the officials had a bad game as well. Logan Ryan, the Giant cornerback, he should have been called for pass interference late in the game on 4th and goal. He wasn't. The Giants took possession of the ball. But then, of course, they didn't get a first down, and the Eagles got it back and got the winning touchdown. But had that not happened, we would have heard a lot about the caller, Logan Ryan. And, of course, Daniel Jones's historic run, that's all over the news clips. That's all people are talking about. All the athletes watching it were tweeting about it, an 80-yard run from scrimmage. Unfortunately, he fell down, and him falling down, everyone missed it. Daniel Jones did not trip. Daniel Jones fell down from exhaustion. He was just dead tired. Quarterbacks are not used to sprinting all out the length of the field. Wide receivers are, running backs. So our quarterbacks just aren't. They're used to like 20, 30 yards and then hitting the deck. So once Daniel Jones is hitting 65, 70 yards, he was gassed. Yeah. You could tell, he's looking over his shoulder, his mouth is open, and he's really straining, and then he fell down. But it had no bearing on the game because they scored a touchdown. What bothered me about Daniel Jones, too, is one of his interceptions. What was he doing? He drills his receiver from in close. Yeah. A high school quarterback should know better. You take something off the throw. You don't fire the ball nearly as hard as you can from point blank range. And that's what he did. And there was a deflection and an interception and so many little things. And even a running back, the Giants, Dion Lewis, he fumbles right before halftime when they could have basically ran out the clock and gave the Eagles an opportunity for a field goal attempt in which the Eagles ironically missed. So no harm there. But then again, it would have harm down the line. Future games, you make the same mistakes, and many, many mistakes yesterday on both ends.
Yeah, well, you mentioned most quarterbacks aren't used to running 100 yards. We won't throw in, we won't throw in Jackson, and we won't
count him.
Kyle Murray. We won't throw him.
Right.
They definitely could have. Jones is very fast. I don't know. I think that maybe he could have been. I think you're right. He was gassed, and I think he just stumbled, and that turf monster grabbed his foot. And as you say, that had no effect because they did score. Jack, you speak about the hard throw up close. You're affected by the rush, and sometimes that window closes pretty fast. I'm not gonna jump on him for that. I played quarterback, and I know how that rush can make you either throw it harder or faster, especially when you're trying to fit it in a tight window through arms or through bodies. So I can understand that to a point. Again, Ingram, it did hit him in the hands, and I know it's hard, but that's what you get paid to do. You get paid to catch the ball. I met a quarterback when I used to go to football camp when I was younger. His name was Joe Gilliam. I don't know if you ever remember him.
Oh, yeah. One of the three stills, along with Terry Bradshaw, Terry Hanratty, and what was he called? Jefferson Street Joe? What was that nickname?
I'm pretty sure that was because I think he was from Jersey. And I talked to him at the football camp, and I mentioned to him that he was starting at the time. And I said, the biggest knock on you is that you throw the ball too hard. And he said, well, I get paid to throw it. They get paid to catch it. So, I understand what you're saying. There is a certain amount of touch that you do have to put on the ball in certain situations. There, I don't know if touch would have worked. I don't know if that would have helped him. Maybe the guys were in his way. What bothered me, Jack, again, was the offensive line. They had Pert and Thomas in there at times at offensive tackle. They were both playing the same time. Guys were running around him, and these guys were highly sought after. When Thomas was talked about when we drafted him, he plays in the SEC, so they're almost a pro division, which is utter nonsense. There is no college conference that can compare to the National Football League. You're talking the best of the best. So they thought that was going to be almost, a lot of people thought he was almost a gimme, that he was going to be a great starting offensive tackle as a rookie, and it just doesn't work that way. He's got so much to learn, so much reps that he has to take against the best defensive ends in the National Football League or the blitzes. There's a lot he has to learn. It's not going to happen overnight. And by the end of the year, he should be, as they say, by week 16, they're veterans then. So, I mean, the offensive line still is disappointing to me. I think that Shepard coming back was a big thing for Jones. I don't know where Slayton went. I mean, he totally disappeared. I know Slay was on him, but he totally disappeared the whole game. And that's our big receiver.
Well, Golden Tate on that 39-yard touchdown pass, great play by Golden Tate, going up for the ball with the defender, kind of snagging it away and scoring a touchdown. And it's a good weapon for Daniel Jones. But the offensive lines, again, it was a problem for the Giants. But that's the way it is all over the league. I've never seen a season like this where the offensive lines, I mean, just aren't protecting the quarterback, team after team after team. Some of the good ones are the great ones, like a Patrick Mahomes. He can adjust. He's mobile. They run plays where he runs out, passes pretty quickly, has an option to run out of bounds, could buy a little more time. But some of the other teams, like the Cincinnati Bengals, for example, with their golden boy, Joe Burrow, their quarterback of the future, who's really going to be a good one. He's really going to be an outstanding quarterback. He's had difficulty passing the ball for more than 20 yards this year because he hasn't had really time. And they've got to address that situation. I mean, if you look at the legacy of an Andrew Luck, for example, Indianapolis never got him really the blocking until towards the end of his career. And it's that way, like all over the league. It's amazing. The one Giant who's really played well this year on the offensive line has been Will Hernandez. I mean, yesterday was his first penalty of the season. So I feel he's kind of gotten the job done. But I don't have to tell you, it takes just one breakdown, one man not doing his job, and then before you know it, a defender's in the quarterback's face disrupting the play. So everyone's got to be in, be together on it. And again, what we talked about yesterday, it's got to be explained to me better. I mean, I'm maybe a knowledgeable fan at the most, but I'm not an insider. I don't play the game. Why aren't things the way they used to be with the fullback and halfback there to block in case they're needed? To pick up anyone who gets through. You see the running backs these days, they're lined up, practically where the quarterback, they're practically on the line of scrimmage. What happened to the time where they could get a running started? The quarterback could fade back the pass and they're there in position to block. I don't understand the schemes. And listen, if someone told me I didn't know what I was talking about, an insider who played the game, maybe they're right. But I do know this: the quarterbacks are under worse duress than they've ever been in all my years of watching football. That much I do know, and there's a reason for it. And someone tell me the reason. Is it the schemes? It can't be the quality of the players.
No, Jack.
The defensive lines are so bad, but the defensive lines are so good.
Again, Jack, the three best running teams in football are the Ravens because of their quarterback who runs with the ball, even though they've been trying to use him as a passer lately. And you get Tennessee and Pittsburgh. They think about establishing the run game, where you hear a lot of coaches talk about, well, we're going to attack their weakness. Well, a long time ago, you establish, especially as the offense, being the aggressor, right? The defense reacts. They're trying to figure out what you're going to do based off down and distance, the game, certain parts of the field, how much time left, what the score is. So the defense is always trying to guess what you're going to do. They have a good idea. They look at when you come up the line of scrimmage, they look at the formation, they make adjustments, they listen for audibles. But today, it seems like the days where Vince Lombardi, you knew he was going to run the power sweep, and he just said, stop me. And he thought execution was what made the offense better. And it's the same thing even in the 80s, Jack, where, Terry Bradshaw, in the 70s, you had Terry Bradshaw, but Franco Harris, Rocky Bleier, they established a running game, and then Bradshaw passed. It's the same thing with most teams back then, except for maybe the Chargers with Air Coryell and stuff like that. But what happens today is their scheme is to spread the field and to hit them with quick passes or timing patterns. But when you do that, you lose blockers. And if you don't establish a running game, if you're not going to run the ball, in other words, pass to set up the run. This is what Detroit did with Barry Sanders a lot. But Detroit never won playoffs with the greatest running back possibly that ever played the game. So the system has changed and evolved to the point where we're going to throw first and then run the ball. And what that does is the defense comes up and they just rush. They put their ears back. They use different kind of schemes in the back, whether they do drop in the zone, go to man-to-man, or they do come after the quarterback. And a lot of times you see with Jones, you even saw with Wentz last night, and you see with a lot of quarterbacks now, they know they're going to pass. And when the defense knows what you're going to do and what the count is, you've given up every advantage that you have as an offense. So while they may score 40 points in some games, it's not going to work all the time. And as you saw, San Fran last year ran the ball well. The Titans ran the ball well. Baltimore ran the ball well. Kansas City can run the ball well. And as you saw when they played last week, they did run the ball well and won the game because of the running game. So that's what it is, Jack. It's not so much that the players they're bigger, stronger, and faster, as everybody says, but the scheme on the offense has changed so much that now you're telling the quarterback, get rid of the ball before you get hit. And throw in there too, Jack, the rules that have changed that protect the quarterback more from getting late hits and the receivers from not getting hit in the head with somebody else's head. And they call it the defenseless receiver, where he has to almost get a couple steps before you hit him in certain circumstances. So the rules have changed to favor the offense. The offensive scheme is trying to take advantage of those rules changes, and for that, the quarterbacks are under a lot of duress now.
Yeah, but it's all about adjusting to your personnel. And the Giants' biggest weapon, their best players out for the season, Saquon Barkley. Had Saquon Barkley been in the game, that would have changed everything, because as much pressure as they would have put on the Daniel Jones yesterday, it wouldn't have been as much with Saquon Barkley in there, because if they went all out after Daniel Jones, he could have dropped the ball off to Saquon Barkley, and you give him a little bit of the open field, and he could be devastating. Well, so that made like a ton of difference yesterday. You talk about penalties yesterday. What they were allowed to do, what they weren't allowed to do. Just something about Jason Kelsey on the Eagles. Had they lost the game yesterday at the end of the game, in the closing moments where the Eagles are still down there, they're on the Giant 3-yard line, he gets a face mask penalty. Yeah. A face mask penalty to move them all the way back. And then Carson Wentz bailed them out by throwing that TD pass to Boston Scott. Phenomenal catch by Boston Scott to win the game for the Eagles. He's only 5'6".
Yeah.
5'6".
Yeah.
And I kind of wondered about that play, why they didn't review it too, because it kind of looked close to me whether he was in bounds or not.
Yeah.
And but I guess it was conclusive. Yeah, and I haven't heard any controversy.
Well, Jack, you bring up, Saquon Barkley not being there, and it might have changed. Don't forget, when Saquon Barkley got hurt, he was averaging like 2 yards per carry. because of that offensive line. And to me, Jack, that's just an excuse. I mean, the Eagles were banged up too. They got the offensive linemen, 6 different line formations. Scott is not their starting running back. They've had problems at wide receiver. Hurts was out. So to me, I mean, the Giants, the game is what the game is. The game is who you're playing against, who you have playing, and who's gonna play better that game. So saying Saquon Barkley wasn't there, to me, is an excuse. You still are playing a football game against a beat-up Eagles team also. Probably more beat up than the Giants, to be honest with you. And even though I'm a Giant fan, I'm not going to use that excuse that if we had Saquon Barkley, it would have been a different outcome. Because I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if the Giants are there yet, Jack. Because to me right now, the Giants, you hear a lot of people say changing the culture and what a good team is. A good team wins those close games. A good team, when they jump out in front, holds the other team down. A good team will take advantage of mistakes. The Giants right now aren't a good team. They're competitive. I mean, they're going out there. They're doing their best. They're in the games.
Unlike the Jets, they're in. You said it, saying it best, Mac. Unlike the Jets, they're at least in the game. I mean, the outcome's in doubt when you're in the fourth quarter. And they're playing hard the whole way. They're being beaten because they're not a good team. Good teams know how to close games out. The Giants haven't been able to close the games out.
Right.
But the Jets are non-competitive. That's the whole difference in the game. With the Giants, all they need is that little turnaround. The Giants are 1-6. The Giants can easily be 4-3 this year.
Right.
They could easily be 4-3. The Jets are 0-6. The Jets can easily be 0-6.
Yeah.
And different.
And Philadelphia, whether they're a good team right now or not, they have a winning culture in there. They just won a Super Bowl. They always have a solid, competitive team. They'll play anybody tough, as you saw against the Ravens. You saw against the Steelers. They're very competitive. They have a good winning culture there in Philadelphia right now, and that's why they won that game and the Giants didn't. It's that simple, Jack. You got to learn how to win. And what that means is that in them tight positions, you've got to make the big plays. And that means everybody. That means Ingram's got to catch that ball. Jones can't throw a stupid interception. They can't have a dumb penalty. They can't, these things are what not good teams do yet. And when they start doing that is when they're going to start winning those close games. I don't think the Eagles had more talent than Giants. I think the Giants are just as talented as the Eagles. I really believe that. Maybe once has an edge over Jones. But once you become a working unit, a competitive team, once you start learning how to win those close games and when you got a team down, you keep them down. Once you can do that, then you're going to start winning games instead of losing.
The Eagles know it's about peaking. They're only 2-4-1 their record. 2 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie. Ties ran the NFL, but in this case, the tie is going to be the tiebreaker because it's unlikely any other team is going to have a tie within the division.
Right.
Eagles in first place by a half a game. The team that's closest to them is the Dallas Cowboys, who've been awful this year. How much better are they going to get? They're going to have a hard time fixing that defense this year. Eagles know it's about peaking. Right. They could finish this year 7 wins, 8 losses, 1 tie, but go into the playoffs on an upswing. And if they go on into the playoffs on an upswing and they're getting better and better, who knows what might happen in the playoffs? They know that. They're aware that their season is very much alive. It's alive and it's well now.
Right.
Okay? But with the Giants, Giant fans are patient. Giant fans didn't expect much this year. Really, yesterday was a sickening loss, but it would be a lot worse a year from now.
Yeah.
Joe Judge has been there. They're more established. I mean, as disgusted as Giant fans were, no one is taking to the airwaves and saying we need a new coach, we need a new this, we need a new that. And there are going to be some other tough losses this year. They might get a couple of more good wins. But I could understand a Giant fan wincing because had they won yesterday's game, they would have had the same record as the Dallas Cowboys in first place. And they could have actually been seriously thinking about winning the division had they won yesterday's game, which would have been amazing. The idea that they would have been seriously contending for it, and that kind of went out the window.
Well, as far as rivalries go, Jack, right? To me, I mean, a lot of people talk about the Cowboys, Redskins, Cowboys, Giants. To me, the best rivalry for years in the NFC East has been the Giants-Eagles. I mean, they've won 8 in a row so far, and even last year they had to come back and beat us twice. So, I mean, and the miracles were Deshaun Watson, that fumble, back when Herman Edwards picked it up and ran it in. Even when we were going to the Super Bowl, Jack, they would beat us. I mean, Randall Cunningham made some unbelievable plays at the end of the game to beat the Giants, even when they were a Super Bowl team. This rivalry has gone on since Gifford and got that big hit by the middle linebacker. His name escapes me right now, for the Philadelphia Eagles, and pretty much ended his career. So, I mean, this is
I can tell you that's a good one. Yesterday on the Michael Kay show, they're talking about the 5 biggest moments in Giant Eagle history. Okay, of course, the fumble comes number one, that Joe Pisarcik, they fumbled her, when he should have taken a knee and ran out the clock, and Herm Edwards picked it up, returned it for touchdown. That level of incompetence is unmatched in NFL history, when you just have to take a knee, and you can't even do that to win the game. But the one play that you mentioned, a little while ago, actually, that they were unaware of, and I was frustrated. I said, come on, fellas, and they didn't get it. Chuck Bednarik, the great linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, who hit Frank Gifford going over the middle. He laid Frank Gifford out. Frank Gifford missed all of next season because of that. He was put out for a year because of that. And Pat Summerall, who the Giant kicker at the time, who later became more famous as a broadcaster for the NFL, when a stretcher was coming out, they thought Frank Gifford had died. That's how bad the hit was. And for years after that, people would see Frank Gifford at card shows. They'd come over with a photo of Chuck Bednarik standing over him, like holding his hand like that. Yeah. Frank Gifford refused to sign it. He says, that's not football, and so on. And Frank Gifford was always sensitive towards that play. He said, look, I was off balance coming over the middle. He probably was telling the truth, that too. Yeah, but that savage hit that laid him out at that time was kind of legendary. Now, the NFL keeps talking about safety. But you watch the Week in Review at the NFL, and I don't watch the show on Showtime much. I turned to it yesterday. The NFL continues to glorify the big hits, the sound effect and all that. And they're talking about safety, but they're glorifying the big hits.
Right.
Evan Ingram yesterday. All we remember is the drop pass that he should have caught, even though I give Daniel Jones maybe 20% of the blame, despite what Troy Aikman said about it being a perfect pass, and Troy Aikman obviously knows more about that than I do. Right. I thought, he made him reach a little bit. But like Angelo Dundee used to say to George Foreman when he trained him late in his career, and Foreman would get back to the corner, he'd say, this is what separates the men from the boys. Catching balls like that for Evan Ingram, that's what separates NFL players from non-NFL players, Pro Bowl players from ordinary players. And Evan Ingram, who's been a very good player for the Giants, just didn't make that particular catch.
Well, Jack, we do got Byron. It's a little dark. Let me see if I can bring him in here. Byron, are you driving, Byron?
Hey, good morning.
Byron's going into a tornado.
Yes.
I'm in my car, so I'm driving.
What's going on? I mean, where are you headed to, Byron?
I woke up mad this morning because the Giants should have won the game, but it's good morning.
Yes. Well, being a former Giant and Eagle wide receiver, I guess you favored the Giants last night, but a little floppy of a game, but it was very entertaining, Byron. I mean, it was a very competitive game at the end.
It was, and Doug Peterson and I was teammates in '91
Oh,
in the World League. So yeah, I always have been real close to Doug and love rooting his team on. But of course, the Giants gave away that game last night. I sure hate that.
Doug
Yeah.
Peterson's got to be a little quicker with the challenge flag. What was he doing? I mean, thinking about it a while or what? You either throwing the darn flag or not. I want to hear he missed by a fraction of a second. Come on. How can
Yeah, I
he
know.
be mad at players if he can't even get that right?
Yeah, exactly. That could have been a pivotal moment in the game because we were short on that first down catch just a little bit.
Yes.
I meant to ask about, yeah.
Go ahead, Jack.
On one of the plays on Daniel Jones's interception, it drives me crazy whenever I see a quarterback drill a receiver from close range. Didn't you hate that when you're like a few yards away and the quarterback fires the ball, just doesn't take anything off it, and then the ball deflects off the receiver, gets intercepted, and the receiver looks bad, even though a lot of it's the quarterback's fault.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's everything happened on that football field so fast, and sometimes the ball gets there, the receiver not quite focused on that ball, and that was just a bad circumstance with that interception at that particular time of the game, and it really was, was a moment that it changed the momentum of the game, really.
Well, Byron, me and Jack are talking about the difference between a good team and a bad, not so good team. I shouldn't say bad, but and the winning culture. It seems to me that the Eagles, because of the Super Bowl, and they've been competitive the last couple of years, they know how to win these close games, and this is why the Eagles will probably win the East this year. The Giants, they're changing the culture. They really don't know how to win yet. They're not that good yet, where they can win these close games or keep a team down when they're up by 11 points, in the fourth quarter. You should be able, if you're a good team, to either score again or hold them off. And what are your feelings about that? Do you agree with that, Byron?
I personally agree with that. The Eagles, some of the Eagle players was on that Super Bowl team as well, and the Giants just right now, they've been in almost every game. I mean, they've been very competitive, and right now they just don't have that mojo to finish the teams off. I mean, that was just a good example last night. Carson Wentz just had a phenomenal, just close out that game, and they had we still in this game to 0 seconds left on the clock. So the Giants got to create that kind of brain focus for us, being competitive, playing all 60 minutes of the game. So they got to really 48 minutes of the game. So they really got to glue in and focus in. But that comes with experience. And I think that's what they had over the Giants. It was that experience of playing in the Super Bowl, playing in close games as well.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder the Eagles, how they use Jalen Hurts. They use him like it seems 2-3 times a game, and it's so predictable. He gets the ball, and he runs a couple of yards, and they take him out. And I didn't understand early in the fourth quarter, Eagles have the ball. On first down, Jalen Hurts is in there. And unless Jalen Hurts is going to pass the ball, okay, or whatever, to fool the Giant defense, I mean, it's so predictable what he does. He runs for 2-3 yards, goes back to the sideline. They pat him in the back. It's as if they are trying to just get him in the game to keep him happy, to use him in some way or form. It made no sense on first down to have Jalen Hurts in for that play. I could understand 3rd and 1 or something like that, but first down in a big spot, it made no sense.
Right. I think that's a good point, Jack. I think at least let him pass every now and then, or look to pass.
Yeah.
At least have an option to run pass. But every time he's been in there, he's been running. So, yeah, it seems like to me the defense ought to be really alert about what he's getting ready to do. And, yeah, it's something at some point they doing that to keep him happy. Exactly. I think you point on.
Hey, Byron, a couple of things about the NFL. You got Tua starting for the Dolphins this week. They pulled off Fitzpatrick, who I think did a great job being starting quarterback for the 3-3 record there. What do you think about that? Do you think the Miami Dolphins, because of the new quarterback, take a step back because Tua is there, or you think they're going to maybe exceed what they did with Fitzpatrick?
Well, I think they inserted him in the game for that particular purpose. They had a game plan of probably setting him for 5 games, 6 games, letting him play, get the timing down. It still reverts back to practice. He must be having some good practice. So they ready to go with him. They're ready to build that team around him. And I think it's good timing motion to get some momentum to not only the fans down there, but his jersey is selling. He's one of the top-rated jerseys that's selling down in the whole state of Florida. So I think Miami's taking the opportunity of his talent and his gifts. I think the timing is going to be perfect for Miami, to go in and use him and start playing him now.
Mac Day and Byron, the Giants did a similar thing with Eli Manning. Kurt Warner was the quarterback, and Kurt Warner was doing well for the Giants at the time. They had a winning record, and Tom Coughlin then made the move to Eli Manning. It's inevitable. They drafted Tua as their quarterback of the future, and the whole question was whether he was just going to sit out this year and just learn from Fitzpatrick. His injuries would heal, et cetera, et cetera. But apparently he's healthy. He's learned enough, and the move really has to be made. That's why I didn't understand with the Los Angeles Chargers when the coach Anthony Lynn was intending on starting Tyrod Taylor and saying if Taylor plays well, he could also be the quarterback next year. When you draft someone that high in the top 10, like Justin Herbert went number 6 overall, you're drafting him to be a quarterback of the future. There's like no way around it. The only time I can remember where there would have been a serious quarterback controversy when you took a guy that high, when Phillip Rivers was taken number 4 by the Chargers overall, but they had Drew Brees, and Brees was playing great. And what made their decision easy finally to go over to Phillip Rivers is Drew Brees hurting his shoulder the last game of the season. If he didn't hurt his shoulder, what a problem San Diego would have had deciding. But when you draft the quarterback that high, the handwriting is on the wall. And in all due respect to Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's been with 8 teams so far. He kind of knows what his role is. And don't be surprised he, winds up in a spot like the Jacksonville Jaguars next year, the Chicago Bears or whatever. The man's a survivor.
Right, absolutely. He's a great person too as well. I heard that he's team oriented, and everybody on the team respects him and what he brings to the table. He had an outstanding game, last week, the week before last. He just, he's been making the Dolphins be possibility of having a playoff team. So, you can really just appreciate a player like that making the sacrifice and doing the things that he have done in the years that he have played.
Byron, do you think, Mac too, do you guys think the Dolphins can beat out the Patriots this year?
Right now, it looks like they got a lot of momentum going. So I would say the Dolphins they've been in almost every game like the Giants. I mean, they are one of those teams that making changes and having a lot of momentum for us. Their strength of schedule. So I think you got to look out and consider the Dolphins as maybe a wild card team.
Yeah, Byron, speaking of that, what is the most surprising team this year in the NFL to you? Is it the Dolphins? Is it the Carolina Panthers? Is it maybe the Arizona Cardinals? I almost said St. Louis Cardinals.
Right. I think Arizona Cardinals, they actually predicted to beat the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. So they've been playing good team ball, fundamental ball. I think it's going to go into the timing of the season. It's just like the first part of the season, you have a surprise team. And the second part of the season, you're going to have a surprise team. So it's one of those things to where right now the Cardinals having a lot of momentum. The Dolphins is having some momentum. But the strength of their schedule is another factor, I think, too, that's not being considered. So you got to continue to watch the strength of their schedules. But it seems like everybody like playing the NFC East teams right now. So
yes,
they can wins be competitive to position themselves for the playoffs.
And let me follow up with that, Byron. Okay, you gave us the most surprising team. Who do you think is the most disappointing team this year? I think it's the Vikings. I mean, some people pick
doubt.
them.
I
Yeah.
was about to say the Vikings because they went in with Kirk Cousins and that defense because they play great defense. They always have played great defense, but right now they seem like they're in a whole other land. I mean, they don't look like the Minnesota Vikings.
Has there been a more valuable player in the NFL this year than Russell Wilson? Because the Seattle defense has struggled, but he's always found ways to win games for them. And the man's just getting better, as time goes along. And has there been a more valuable player in the NFL than Russell Wilson?
Yeah, Russell Wilson right now, you cannot count him out in any given situation. Even if the team is down, he'll find a way to position his team. He dropped the ball in there perfectly to the receivers. He run when he have to. I mean, you can rush him all kind of ways on the defense, and he find a way to escape. And right now, he's just playing outstanding football. I was looking at one of the stats, and they was talking about, of course, Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson. And I tell you what, even in Tennessee, they have surprised a lot of people too this first part of the season. So, and it all builds around those quarterbacks and what they're doing. They're playing error-free football. They're making a whole lot of mistakes, and that's a very key. Not making mistakes. And and that's the result of the situation what we see now with Seattle and Russell Wilson and those guys.
Three wide receiver questions for you real quick, Byron, before we let you go. I don't want you to get in an accident. It would be terrible. But
I got my wife right here. She co-piloted it. So.
Okay, cool. Tell your wife we said hi. There's three receivers that I read about in the news. The Baltimore Ravens are taking a look at Dez Bryant. Russell Wilson thinks Antonio Brown deserves another chance. And Michael Thomas for the Saints doesn't look like he's gonna play this weekend. What do you think about Dez Bryant? Do you think he's got anything left in the tank to actually come out and make some kind of contribution?
Yeah, it's amazing that you said that. My wife was she's a Dez Bryant fan. She was just talking about that, and because he always showing his highlights, his workouts, and he looked good just working out and running routes and catching the ball right now because they highlight him a lot here in Dallas, and she's on his Twitter account, Instagram. So she gave me a full report on Dez. I think, to bring in a receiver like that with that much experience, if he stay focused on just what the game, what he brings to the game, he can contribute to Baltimore. I think that'll be good for Baltimore. So yes, I think just by looking at him, he's been very consistent on the football field. His problem's been off the field. But I think, he can bring a lot of experience to that locker room. And they stay on top of him, though. They got to stay
How about Antonio Brown? Do you believe that any team is willing to take a chance on that possible headache of bringing him in and all the circus that surrounds Antonio Brown?
Yeah, Antonio Brown is a different type of player. I think he can help a team, but he got to come in and be team-oriented. Can't be it's me and it's all about me type stuff. You don't play the game of football like that. The older you get, you understand the more valuable teamwork and team morale. And you have to have players in that locker room, not only that, away from the locker room, doing the consistent things that it takes to be a winner, on and off the football field and bring something to the teams that you join. So Antonio Brown, hopefully, he understanding now that you don't get too many opportunities when you've been tagged a certain type of player.
See, you mentioned about Dez Bryant going to the Ravens, okay? And unless, Byron, correct me if I'm wrong, if the culture within the locker room isn't that strong, even if you have a winning team, Dez Bryant could conceivably be a negative influence. But take the old-time Raven teams not that long ago with Ray Lewis, for example. The culture was so powerful in that locker room that Dez Bryant and Antonio Brown couldn't come in there and shake it up, okay? They would have to toe the line and fit in. But if the culture's not that strong, the potential of them being a disruption could be strong, is there, especially with a young player like a Lamar Jackson, despite being an MVP. He is a young player, and he might be a leader on the field and in the locker room to an extent, but not as much as like a Ray Lewis type was.
Exactly, and I think that's a great point. I think about Randy Moss going to the Patriots back when he was, going from team to team, free agent a little bit. Still a great player, but with Belichick and the things that I heard that Belichick and him had in common. So I think that's a good example of making these veteran players that can come in and give you a run at the Super Bowl. Because at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal. So I hope Antonio Brown can come in and maybe do that. Maybe by him sitting out the last couple of years, maybe he can see now that this is what I need to do. Just look at some players like Chris Carter and those guys, Randy Moss. Those guys, at the end of their career, they was able to help teams take it to another level.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. He definitely would need to go to a strong locker room, I think, especially Antonio Brown. Byron, thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming in, coming in via, and thank your wife for helping you out, come in. That's why we love having you on. You're a true professional. And a little quick word about your camp before we let you go, Byron.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm coming down to Texas County now. We got a virtual platform with these kids, and they're at the universities. It's Texas A&M, Texarkana, one of my hometown colleges. We got some freshman, sophomore students at the college that I'm going to do today. But the camps, we still, like you said, last week, we still planning on those camps. I will get more information to everyone that, we're working on the Super Bowl camp, but now we're going to do a couple of youth combines here in Dallas. We are working on scheduling for that as well, to where we can get in the community and talk about the focus of the importance of education. I just saw where education, these kids are not, school and going to school is so important. I mean, the drop on the level of knowledge and their focus on progress have dropped about 19-20% since the virtual platform have been introduced since the COVID hit. So It's important that, we have these kids engaged in the importance of staying focused.
Well, Byron, thank you again for coming in.
Byron.
We appreciate you taking time out. We love having you on, and we'll see you again next week, Byron. Thank you again.
Okay,
Take care, Byron.
Next week I will be in Vegas.
Okay.
So we'll come from Vegas next week.
Wow, that's
on location.
we got a Roman.
I slipped in a relief pitch of Jalen Hurts. Okay.
Yes.
Hey, I'm getting ready for my birthday, Jack. I will be. I'm a Halloween baby, so trick or treat. We're gonna celebrate
cool.
Halloween weekend next week.
Happy birthday! Happy upcoming birthday, Byron. You have a great day, my friend.
You guys have a great day as well. We'll see y'all.
Thank you,
Byron. Thanks.
So there you go, Byron Williams, our roving reporter.
God, listen, had I been a Giant player, he would have probably been my roommate. I get along great with him.
Yeah, I mean, isn't he unbelievable? I mean, total
Great guy.
comes out and he's going to Vegas. He'll come from Vegas. Maybe we'll send him around different parts of the country, Jack.
Vegas, an update on the the Las Vegas Raiders. I have a hard time saying that.
Isn't that hard? You heard me almost say the St. Louis Cardinals. Do you believe
Las
that?
Vegas Raiders.
I mean,
come on.
I mean, it's hard for us old timers to adjust to that kind of stuff. Jeff.
I mean, I'm glad the Los Angeles Rams are back. They became the St. Louis Rams. I mean,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, I hear you. So, folks, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick 3.5-minute break. We'll be right back. We still have Keith Engle coming up around 9:15 to give us his Patriots report. We'll talk about the Patriots. I have been talking to Jets podcasters, Buffalo we had on here, and I'm trying to get a hold of Eagles. So we're going to try and get you all the different insiders we can from the local Northeast. We'll be back in about 3.5 minutes, and we'll see you then, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner? Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight. Oh, can Nina come over? I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink? Grandma? This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. Really? I promise, Grandma. I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, folks, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with my co-host, Jack Hirsch. We just had Byron Williams on, if you missed it, folks. Great interview. He was traveling to get one of his camps all set. And, on the road, Byron still comes in, still does the show. And that's why I love him, Jack. I love having him as a guest, a lot of knowledge, and willing to do that for us.
I love him because the points I was making, he was actually agreeing with.
Yes.
Okay, that hasn't been the case in the past weeks. He was actually saying, "Good point, Jack."
Yes.
Learn football and so on. Yeah, I got to tell you a funny story. We were once having a two-hand touch game with a whole bunch of kids, myself, And I was the coach of their team, two-hand touch. That's a fun game. I had like five kids on my team, high school age. He had 5 kids on his team, high school age. Now, the opposing coach who played quarterback as I did, he played for UMass. He was a friend of mine. And there was a thing the kids taught me that was called man and mo. Have you ever heard of man and mo, Mac?
It's got to be man.
Go ahead. It's this. It's kind of ridiculous in a way. And we saved it for the end of the game. It was a secret weapon. After play is incomplete, the kids are walking back to the huddle, to get set for the next play.
Sure.
If one kid yells man and mo, they don't actually have to walk all the way back to the huddle. They can scatter out and the quarterback can throw a pass. So it's a schoolyard thing that kids made up. Kids make up these crazy rules. So all of a sudden I call man and mo with the game tied up, the last play of the game. I throw a touchdown pass. My buddy who played for UMass is stunned. He never heard of man and mo. They tell it to him. He calls all the kids together, like the 10 of them.
Right.
And he says, look, Mr. Jack is a great guy, a wonderful person, but he doesn't know a thing about football, so don't listen to him. The game's a tie. That doesn't count, that touchdown. So that kind of warmed my heart.
That's a great story, Jack.
Yeah.
Today, Jack, I got a thought for today. I know you do too. Mine might be a little long. It's a little less about sports and a little bit more about what's going on. I was contacted this week. My aunt has passed away. Saturday, tomorrow, we won't be doing a show because I have to be. Well, I'm going to the funeral to pay my respects to her family and to kind of say a prayer for her or whatever. So my thought for the day is. Jack, we really don't know how lucky we are. Enjoy life while you can. My father, who came from a very poor family and had a very rough life, he grew up in Brooklyn in the projects, once told me that when I was a kid, and I was feeling sorry for myself, he told me a saying. He said, I felt sorry for myself because I had no shoes, and then I met another person who had no feet. And that saying has kind of always stuck with me. We all tend to live in our own bubble where we have our own beliefs, our own standards, views, and how we deal with things. And we get wrapped up in our own lives without the thought of what other people are doing and what they're going through. And we forget about our family sometimes and our real friends, unless what they do directly affects us, whether it's sports, politics, social media, which is anything but social. Our views are right. Anyone who disagrees with us is wrong. And when all that matters really is health, your family, friends, sitting outside, enjoying the gift of life. And as I said, my aunt passed away, and I'm going to be going to a funeral tomorrow and seeing some relatives that I haven't seen in years and some friends. And that's a shame. And I don't know if it's more I'm sorry that my aunt died or for her family. My uncle was married to her for 50 years. He's been taking care of her. And now he really, his position in life has changed. And I might be preaching right now, and it really has nothing to do with sports we watch on TV. But really, life isn't life a sport, Jack? Isn't it competitive? It's hard sometimes, and it can be very satisfying or disappointing in many ways. So no matter our differences, our beliefs, our views, aren't we all just competing and trying to make our lives better? You're only here once, Jack, and it ends up being up to you, how you live your life. So that's my thought.
Mac, you said it perfectly. I mean, there's nothing I can really add to that. I mean, you're really well said on your part.
Thank you. And I know you have a thought, so we're going to keep it right here, let you give your thought for the day. And I have a feeling it has something to do with baseball.
Mac, after something as meaningful and serious as what you said, it's not the best of timing for my thought of the day, but so.
Yeah, but go ahead, Jack.
No, right. I mean,
sports show.
You said it's truly meaningful.
Thank you.
So I don't want to go in a tantrum because it's so unimportant what I'm going to talk about. But I was a little annoyed yesterday, sports-wise, not in my personal life. And I was annoyed at a Yankee player, not the Yankee player himself. I want to see Yankee players get awards. I mean, I mean, I want to see the Yankees win the World Series. That's a while coming now, even getting there. But I enjoy seeing Yankee players being given well-deserved recognition. What I
Right.
don't enjoy is seeing Yankee players being given undeserved recognition. Now, yesterday they came out with the top 3 nominees for the Golden Glove Awards, okay? And for right field, amongst the top 3 who are going to be up for the Golden Glove Awards was Clint Frazier. I asked which idiots, decided that. It's absolutely ludicrous. The same Clint Frazier who got sent down to the minor leagues in part because he was a defensive liability. The same Clint Frazier who's been taken out of games because they wanted to put in a defensive replacement in Brett Gardner. Now, in all due respect to Clint Frazier, who I want to see start next year. He should be a start in the big leagues. He went down to the minor leagues. He worked hard on his problems, and he went from a terrible defensive outfielder to maybe an average one at this point. But to call him a top 3 put him in the top 3 nominees for the Golden Glove Award, it cheapens the whole award. It's a joke. It's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it's the equivalent of putting Daniel Jones in the top 3 to see who goes to the Pro Bowl this year.
Right.
It's dumb. And I'd like to know how they come to that conclusion. And they did it on a small body of work because Clint Frazier's in the minor leagues part of the year.
Yeah.
He's in the minor leagues part of the year. So what? He comes back for 22 games. He shows he can catch a routine fly ball. And he shows he can hit the cutoff man. So he's a top 3 Golden Glover. I mean, I hate to put down players on the Yankee team. And this isn't a put down of Clint Frazier. It's a put down of those idiots who put him in, in the top 3 defensively for Golden Glove Award. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Sure. And Jack, I agree with you 100%. First of all, as we talked about before, Clint Frazier wasn't even the starting right fielder for the Yankees. That was Joe Judge. And of course, in the beginning of the year,
Aaron Judge. You're thinking Giants all the time.
Maybe they're related.
Who is the best known judge in New York? Joe Judge, Aaron Judge. Who's going to be on the hot seat more next year? If Aaron Judge isn't a superstar and Joe Judge starts winning, it's Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge's contract is going to come up. So he's going to be big news. He's going to be very big news. Should the Yankees re-sign him at this amount, that amount, it's going to be the talk of the town.
I agree.
But if he doesn't win next year, he's going to start becoming the talk of the town. But now he's on a honeymoon period.
I think for the answer to the question, Jack, I'm going to go with Judge Judy. I think she's probably the most important, probably the most known judge in New York. But anyway, I agree with you, Jack. I mean, they got a lot of decisions coming up with the Yankees about what they're going to do. As far as these contracts coming up, we know DJ Lemieux is going to be coming up on a contract, and they can't lose him, Jack. I mean,
I got a bigger one than that. Let's go cross town. We've been neglecting the Mets lately. Michael Conforto,
right?
A year away from free agency, I believe. And what are they going to do with Michael Conforto? They're going to have to either sign him to a long-term deal or let him play out the year. But then he's probably going to leave unless Steve Cohen has in his head he's going to match any offer, whatever, or give him the money this offseason. As soon as Steve Cohen officially takes over the team, that's the first order business. I think they're going to have to, people are saying J.C. Realmuto, whether they get him to be a catcher, they're going to have to move a little quick on that than Michael Conforto, because Conforto's under contract a year. But Michael Conforto is going to be a big one. I mean, he's really is a top of the line outfielder.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent bat, very good defensively, and he's probably going to remain as a very good player for years to come.
I definitely agree with everything you just said there, Jack. You're hitting home today. But today, Jack, we have our trivia question. I even got music for it. So here for our trivia question, since we're going to go with baseball, you'll segue perfectly into this question. So, Jack, the trivia question today for you and the folks out there is, who was the last player to steal home plate in the Major League Baseball?
Regular season, anything?
Right. The last person to ever go ahead and steal home plate, Jack.
I was hoping it'd say World Series so I could think maybe Jackie Robinson.
Right, right.
But, wow.
So,
there's steals of home and there's steals of home. There's a legitimate steal of home where the runner times it. I mean, I can't, it's too far back. I would think Rod Carew used to time it with Billy Martin.
okay.
Billy Martin was very aggressive, but that was too long ago. It had to have happened. Wow, it had to happen in the last 20 years.
Yes, it
Maybe
has.
the last few years.
Yes, it has.
Man. Yeah,
I mean,
but it's so
rare.
We talk legitimate steal of home.
Yes.
Where the runner timed the pitcher and took off, or was it just the runner had a nice lead and the pitcher had a lapse in concentration and then he took off?
You're stalling, Jack. You're stalling big time.
I'm stalling because I don't know the answer.
Okay, good. So I got you.
My head. That's it. I'm buying time now.
Yes, you are.
Fans are booing.
And it's getting expensive, Jack.
Maybe someone's
well, Jack, believe it or not, it happened. It happened in 2000.
Think of all-time guys like Murray Wills.
Right.
Henderson.
It happened.
I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to take a wild guess. If I got it right, I didn't get it. I'm not getting this right. This is a 1 in 100 guess. Was it Jackie Bradley Jr.?
No, sir. No, it was not. This is done in 2017. It was done by a San Diego Padre player. His name was Will Myers. In August of 2017, not only did he steal home, Jack, he stole second, he stole third, and he stole home in the same inning.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? I mean,
that's legendary stuff.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone stealing all three bases in one inning. I've heard him steal.
Wow.
Yeah, so
how did he get to first base to begin with? Do you know?
Well, it doesn't say that. It just said I didn't have that information. Just that he was the last person to steal home plate, and in that same inning, before stealing home plate, he stole second and he stole third.
Well, the Dodgers the old-time Dodgers with Murray Wills used to have a formula. Murray Wills, their great shortstop, lightning fast. They used to manufacture runs for Sandy Koufax. Murray Wills would walk, then get bunted over to second base, then steal third, then score on a sacrifice fly, a ground ball, get 1 run, and 1 run for the great Sandy Koufax. Meant a lot.
It's all you really needed sometimes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But we've talked about at length how baseball has changed, or at least I have, where they don't put pressure on the defense anymore, the pitcher or the catcher. They kind of go up there and swing for the fences. And, there's no basic baseball being played anymore. The steal, the double steal, the bunt, the hit and run, all these things have seemed to have become rarer and rarer. And back in 2017, Will Myers.
Are you a fan, Mac? Are you a fan of the suicide squeeze?
Oh, yes, definitely. I love to see that. I think that.
Hate it.
Yeah, I think
because you're rolling the dice, it's all or nothing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, for those fans who are not aware of the suicide squeeze, the run on third base is breaking for home on the pitch, meaning it's up to the batter to put the ball on the ground. If the batter whiffs on the ball, usually a batter's going to bunt on the suicide squeeze. He's not going to take a normal swing. He just wants to put the ball on the ground, because if he puts the ball on the ground, the run on third's going to score. Okay, There's no way they're getting him out because he's breaking. But if he pops the ball up, it could result in a double play, or if he misses, the runner breaking from third to home is going to be caught and he's going to be out. So you're rolling the dice all on one pitch.
Yeah, I think, Jack.
Don't like it because if there's no outs or one out, let's say there's one out.
Right.
You have two batters who have a chance to get the guy home by just swinging the bat normally, and I hate to let the dice roll on one pitch. That's just me.
I love it, Jack, because I think it always gives, if you do it once, even if you're not successful in the suicide squeeze, it shows other teams that you're willing to do this. And when you got a runner on third with one out, or even two outs, because the pressure it puts on the defense is incredible. If you show that you're willing to do this, they've got to be the pitcher has got to look at you at third. The catcher has got to be ready for that suicide squeeze. I think basic baseball, to me, especially with a team that doesn't have as much talent and big payrolls as some of the other teams, I think this is a way that they can win. Running, bunting, hit and runs, double steals, stealing home, and the suicide squeeze I love. Because, if you have a good runner on third, he may be able to steal home even if the batter misses the ball.
Listen, I like Billy Beane's philosophy from Moneyball, the Oakland Athletics. People think by the name Moneyball, you're hitting, running, you're stealing bases, so on. Billy Beane didn't like the bunt. He went on statistician Bill James's formula. He says if you're pitching to another team and they want to bunt the man over from first to second, just pick the ball up, throw it to first base, get the out, and then say thank you.
Yeah.
There's only 27 outs in a game. Now, there are some exceptions. Don't misunderstand me. I could understand a tie game. You want to get a guy to second base and then have two cracks of getting him in. But even then, teams defensively, they don't line up a smart way. I can never understand if there's a man on second base and one out. How come the outfield's not played in?
Right.
They play the outfield back far enough where base hit's going to score a guy. I just sometimes just don't understand defensive alignments.
Well, again, Jack, I think that's because of the new offense where they're looking for the launching point to try to drive the ball, deep in the gaps or to, hit a home run. There's no more that slapping of the ball like Rod Carew did, like Boggs did, like Brett Gardner did when he first started as a Yankee. He used to go all the way all the time and slap that ball instead of trying to jerk it out of the park. So I think the defense is reacting again to what the offense is doing.
Well, I couldn't understand Keith Hernandez, a smart baseball man. He does the Met telecast with, Gary Thorne and Ron Darling. And it's really enjoyable hearing them. I mean, they know their stuff, obviously, and they analyze the game very carefully. So there was an extra inning game with the Mets this season, and Keith Hernandez was going on and on how important it was in the extra inning game to get the runner from second over to third because now he could score with one out.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, but wait a second, under these new rules, you get the guy in, you get one run, let's say. The next inning, the other team, the home team, is going to have a guy in scoring position automatically.
Yes.
Automatically with 3 chances to get him in. So,
that's true, Jack.
So you're willing to give up an out just to get him to third base? It could work. It could be meaningful if you know you're going to get a sacrifice fly and get him in. But I couldn't understand. It's not as important, at least as it used to be. If it was important before, at least I have to hear an acknowledgement. It's not quite as important anymore.
And, Jack, we will have this third game of the World Series coming up tonight. We're at Tampa Bay. And the Dodgers are tied at 1. Should be a good matchup. But back to football real quick.
Wait, let me just say one thing quick.
Go right ahead.
You said it best. Back to football.
Right.
It's
exactly.
amazing. The playoffs are going and everything. The first 2 games of the World Series, we're talking about it. They take 1 day off in the World Series. 1 day off. And it's like people got to get recharged and regain their interest in the World Series, which kind of makes me think, would the World Series have been better off play the 7-game best 4 out of 7 straight through?
Well, we'll answer that. We'll
Yeah.
answer that, Jack, after we bring in our friend Keith Engle, the Patriots Insider. He's the host of TGI Sports Podcast, knows a lot about the Patriots. He's been coming on every Friday with us, and we really enjoy having this knowledgeable Patriot Insider with us. And let's see if I can get you in here. How you doing today, Keith?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
We're
Keith,
hanging
by
in
the
there.
end of the season, you might not have much to talk about if New England plays the way they did against Denver the rest of the
Wow.
way. You might
It was
become-
not pretty. It was not pretty
you're
for
in a
sure.
good market where you're interesting right now. But with 2-3 games left in the year, you might be a little boring to listen to. Get it together.
Wow, Jack. Wow.
Wow.
That's no way. That's
And
no
listen,
way.
with the Jets.
That's no way to
there's
talk to
nothing
some.
about
Listen,
with the Jets
listen, Jack.
anymore.
I'm
Here's
gonna.
those-
What'd you have in your coffee this morning, Jack?
Keith,
Yeah.
I'm going to scold him right now. Jack, he's a guest on our show.
I
Take
know.
it easy.
Listen,
All
I'm
right,
jealous of him. Because
You're good, Jack.
Success.
You're good.
Off season to New England would have me celebrating if the Jets had that type. Yeah.
I would understand that as well.
Yes. You know, being a Jet fan, Jack, there's nothing but deep-seated hatred towards the Patriots, and we're trying to get away from that, Jack. We've been trying to work on that, but still, you know, a lifelong Jet fan since Joe Namath won the Super Bowl in '69 and hasn't made it back since. And that's all that has to be said, I think, about that.
You know, 50 more years you ought to make. You got a shot, I think, in the next 50 years.
New York Rangers over 40 years, then they won one, then they take another 40 years off, and then life, you know.
Yes, it is. And us being Giant fans after that heartbreaking loss.
Oh, my God.
Oh, you got that right. I mean,
We got to win that game.
It just goes to show, Keith, that there are teams out there, and they call it a winning culture. And it's easy to explain that they know how to win those games. They know how to keep a team down when they're ahead. And the teams that aren't there yet, like the Giants, who play competitive a few games this year, they get in that spot and they lose that game at the end. And they're just not there yet. Maybe by the end of the year, I don't know. But when you get a coach,
you know, they should have beat the Cowboys, I think, too. I mean, they could be in the driver's seat in that division.
Yeah, and they're just not there yet, Keith. And, you know, it's a hard time for the Giant fans to accept that right now. Me being a Giant fan, I kind of understand it. I've coached and played, so I know how hard it is to turn something from a losing attitude, a losing culture, into winning those types of games. And it takes a lot more than just, you know, a pass or a big run. It takes a whole team effort, and it's very hard to do. So, Keith, we're going to get to the Patriots with you. Jack brought up that terrible loss. We talked about it last week. It was a big game for the Patriots.
Don't get Jack going again on that loss.
No, I mean, I was talking to Mac beforehand. We gave Denver a shot because they have a good defense despite the injuries.
Yeah,
But
you know, it was a tough spot for the Patriots. They'd had one practice. I'm not one to make excuses, but one practice in 2 weeks, and they played like it. They were bad in every facet of the game last week, including coaching.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cam looked a little rusty, or a lot rusty, if you want to be honest. The Patriots still play defensively. They always have a good defense, a good special teams. But again, this is a new change too. I mean, you got a new quarterback who has, no matter how good he was before, he had problems with his shoulder. He comes in, he's learning a new system. They're trying to mold the offense around him and trying to make the Patriots a little different than they've been recently, trying to get a running game going. And it's not easy, Keith.
No, it's not. It's not. And they I was disappointed in the running game more than anything last week, to be honest with you. The offensive line has been a sieve both in the passing game and the running game. And Damian Harris had showed some promise in the weeks before, and he was kind of non-existent last week. So they really have got to establish some kind of running game, and it can't be just Cam.
I agree.
They've got to establish a running game to be able to get the passing game going, because there's nobody that can create separation for themselves in this passing game. You know, it's going to take play action. It's going to take a lot more effort than what they've been putting forth so far.
Unfortunately, in the NFL and in sports in general, sometimes you're only as good as your last game. And Cam Newton went from the darling of the NFL practically with the start he got off with the Patriots, which was very heartwarming, looking like his old self. Now, you kind of question New England looking forward, unless they get it together the rest of the year. Cam Newton performs really well and gets re-signed. they're the only team in the AFC East whose quarterback situation is going to be unsettled going into next year. Even with the Jets, they have Sam Darnold, and if they go 0-16,
You got Lawrence. You kidding?
So they'll be fine. As far as their quarterback situation, Tua at Miami, potential Hall of Famer there, and Josh Allen, who's their franchise quarterback. But New England's the only one that's a little unsettled, and Belichick always finds a way to get it done. But is this run basically coming to an end? Are we talking about a New England team that's going to be around 8-8 the next 3-4 years? Or are they just retooling and they're going to establish a level of not dominance, but, at least, contending for the titles?
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. It could go either way, to be honest with you, not to be wishy-washy. I mean, you do have the greatest coach of all time, arguably, I guess. I had Ian O'Connor on this morning, and we talked a lot about that. He grew up going to school at the high school that Vince Lombardi coached at, and he had a hard time with some of his people when he declared Bill Belichick the greatest coach of all time. But I mean, he is, and you can't dismiss that he can retool rather than rebuild. I don't think Bill wants to go through a rebuild. He's 70 years old. I mean, they're going to look to win now, and it's going to get tougher. They can't win the way they're constructed at the moment. I don't think they can't win at all. Can they compete this year? Yes. Last week's loss was just horrific. They cannot lose Sunday and fall to 2-4 going into Buffalo. It's going to be a tough way to come back. But I've said through this whole 20-year run, someday we'll be like everybody else, and we're there. As we talked about, I think on my first appearance, we're there now. I mean, we're not looking at 2-14 seasons, I don't think, in any time in the near future. But there's going to be no cakewalks anymore through the AFC East. I may have made a misstep or a bad misstep when I told you guys I didn't think Miami was there yet. Maybe I'm wrong. And as well as they're playing, they're taking a gamble, I think, changing their quarterback now. But, again, they won't win in the long term with Fitzpatrick. So, this is, with a bye week, I think it's a good time for them to do it. The Patriots, again, I said it a couple times on the show, they're going to have to beat Buffalo twice to compete for the division. And they cannot blow games at home to teams like the Broncos. So I think we learned a lot now that they've had they've been back to full force. They've had a regular routine week this week. You're going to see, I think this week tells a lot about the Patriots and where this season is going to go against the 49ers.
Well, Keith, I kind of disagree with you in one aspect of what you said there. I think the Patriots are always rebuilding. They're always bringing in new players. They're always letting some of the older players go. They got such a system there that I mean, this is, again, as I said before, this is the greatest example of the system being more than the talent on teams with the Patriots, even though Tom Brady, of course, is at least the most accomplished quarterback of all time. But he won a lot of games, not by himself. It was a lot of team effort there and the scheme that was put in place at different times of his careers. And you bring up a point about Miami that I wanted to get to you with Tagovailoa. He's starting this week. He played a little bit last week. They got a bye week this week. So it's going to give him an extra week of practice, an extra week of reps as a starting quarterback. And, of course, I think we could agree maybe he hasn't done it yet, that he is a little bit more accurate than Fitzpatrick is, unless Fitzpatrick is hot. When he gets hot, he's lights out. But I think Tua will be a little bit more consistently accurate. I'm just surmising this because of his college career and what he looked like last week and what they said he looked like in practices. So doesn't this make Miami a very strong contender, not only for the wild card now, Keith? I mean, with a couple of their wins, they look like they have a chance, maybe a slim one, of maybe winning the AFC East this year.
Yeah, first I got to compliment you on going for the last name. I always go say Tua because I don't even want to. I butcher names so terribly. I don't even go for that one.
Same here.
So well done. As far as it's a little early to tell. The guy's thrown 2 passes in the NFL, so yes, if you're going to make the changes, it's the time to do it. So he's got 2 weeks of getting reps with the first team. As you go forward this year, at least, I don't think over the next, I'm sorry, what we played, 5 games, right? So there's 11 games left. They're no worse off playing Tua now than playing Fitzpatrick as far as this season goes and their record. Does he give them a better chance to win? Probably. I think it's possible if he plays well, he'll get them in the picture. I mean, I think the people, at least the people that I've listened to this week, the one reason not to play him now, the biggest reason not to play him well, was to have him sit, watch, and really get healthy.
Right.
He had a pretty devastating injury that ended his college career last year, and that was on top of several other injuries. So that was the big question about Tua going into his professional career was health. And there was a significant amount of people that were saying sitting this entire year and getting healthy would be very important for him, and that's not going to happen now. And he's certainly, while Alabama is certainly playing against a lot of big, fast guys, still not the NFL. So it'll be interesting. If he plays well and stays healthy, I will amend my comment. I still think they're a year away. As I said before, I don't think they're there this year. But, Buffalo's shown some chinks in their armor. And I think, in 9-7, 10-6, going to win this division. And if Miami beats Buffalo and the Patriots, 2 of those 3 games or something, well, obviously we got a different discussion.
Sure.
Keith, if New England loses to the 49ers this weekend, which is a distinct possibility, okay, they'll be 2-4. The trade deadline is less than 2 weeks away. Does Bill Belichick, while he wouldn't be giving up on the season, he's a very logical, calculating guy, does he become a seller? All of a sudden thinking, let me line up draft choices, maybe some of his better pieces he'll trade away for teams in need and set himself up for the draft. And yeah, what do you think if they should lose? If they win, that's an entirely different thing. But if they should lose,
yeah, it's possible. The question is the same whether they win or lose. I mean, as we talked previously, Bill's always retooling. He doesn't want to rebuild, and he does love stockpiling draft choices. And I think he probably feels that he can. I'm sure he feels he could move some of his guys for draft picks and still not be punting the season. Because again, there's no, people. Buffalo's got their flaws, as we've seen the last few weeks. So I think he if there's something to be given to somebody, I don't even know who would be possibly they'd move. I don't see them moving anybody. Like, they're not moving Cam. They're not moving Edelman, I don't think.
Sony Michel?
Possibly, but his injury history isn't going to bring him back much.
But some team might think he could be very valuable for the playoffs.
Yeah, I like Sony. He's a great athlete, but you got to stay on the field. That's his biggest problem. It's possible though. If the right offer comes along, somebody wants to offer a couple of draft picks, we'll go.
I'm curious. I mean, it's reported that it's speculated that Bill Belichick occasionally takes a little dig at Tom Brady or Rob Gronkowski. Is he really doing that when he praises another player? If he praises another tight end, is he really taking a little bit of a dig at Gronk, or are people just taking it out of context? For example, like if I'm praising another talk show host, people think I'm taking a dig at Mac. Okay, stuff like that. That's a joke.
Well, you do that all the time, Jack. You do that all the time.
I watch you guys. I see that go on live. So
but is he really doing that, or are we just making too much out of it?
I think there's something, again, to both sides of that. I think most of the time it's probably too much given to it, but Bill is very good at passive aggressively taking little digs. I've talked in the past on my show and on your show about the fact that Belichick never really never publicly called out Tom Brady.
Right.
Like Bruce Arians did in week 1. And miraculously that stopped. I have to believe somebody got in Bruce Arians' ear and maybe said, we may not want to really knock Tommy in the press, but I digress. He has a history of not directly calling people out to the press. But passive aggressively, he does it all the time. When I was talking with Ian O'Connor, reminded me of a story that I actually forgotten. And when Tom played against the Rams and they won the Super Bowl, and he had the bad, gruesome thumb injury, right? And there was a question whether he was going to play. And he played, and a lot of guys wouldn't have played. But afterwards, Belichick got asked about it, what about Brady's performance with that horrible injury? And he goes, well, look, he wasn't out there performing heart surgery. Little things like that. He takes little digs. So I think sometimes he takes a little passive aggressive approach, and it's a little dig at more Brady than Gronk. I don't know that look at Gronk's kind of a shell of himself right now. He played well last week.
Yeah.
And still still a factor in the run game, but he's certainly not the Rob Gronkowski that we remember, 5-6 years ago.
Well, Keith, there was discussion about that too, and just veering away from the Patriots and what you talked about with Tampa Bay for a minute. They said that, in the beginning when Brady was going there, they were more or less trying to push the ball downfield, and maybe they came back to what Brady does best at hitting the short time-in routes and then maybe taking a shot. And they think that maybe that's why Gronk got a couple more passes thrown his way instead of just pushing it deep to the wide receivers. So I think there was a little bit of strategy there to get Gronk more involved and maybe Brady a little bit more comfortable.
Well, I think that's smart. I mean, that's been the way he's been successful through all the years. I mean, he was successful throwing the ball long because of the short passing game to begin with. So,
right.
Keith, getting back to Belichick, I can envision this scenario where he's getting older, and I think of what Bill Parcells said about Bill Belichick. He said that Bill's going to see there's another life out there, but Bill Belichick, when you talk about another life, he's a life as far as it comes to the NFL. I could see him assuming a GM's position, much as Pat Riley does with the Miami Heat in basketball, be in control of the organization, because how much longer can Josh McDaniels stay as an assistant coach, as the offensive coordinator? Josh McDaniels could have been a head coach again. He was one with the Broncos, and he was interviewed with the Indianapolis Colts and supposedly accepted the job and then changed his mind, which doesn't help him around the league when you do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But how much longer is Bill Belichick actually going to be the head coach? And I'm not talking about the GM, because I could see him transitioning to that.
I think he's here for a while. I think he thinks he can coach well into his 70s. As long as he can keep the team competitive, I see him staying there. I don't know that I see him taking that step back, though, Jack, to just the GM. I think he likes the coaching part of it. I think he likes the practices. I think he likes the job the way it is today. As far as having another life out there, Bill does okay when, during the off season. If, he has some fun, he travels with some interesting guys like Bon Jovi and, guys you wouldn't think of that would be tight with Bill Belichick. I think he likes his life.
Wait. Had Bon Jovi bought the Bills, had he become owner of the Bills, do you think there's the tiniest of chances that he could have convinced, if he's buddies with Bill Belichick, could he have possibly thrown a ridiculous amount of money at Bill Belichick, in some way, somehow gotten him to come over to the Bills?
Well, that's it's a pretty big leap in speculation.
Jack was talking about stuff like this.
I think it's more likely that Bill would have said, don't buy a team in the AFC East, like he told Eric Mangini not to take the job with the Jets, right? Because you're dead to me if you do. So right. I think there's probably more chance of that.
Hey, Keith, back to the Patriots for a minute in this year. The Bills are playing the Jets. That should make them healthy and real quick. I mean, I don't want to put down the Jets. I think that, the Jets are a bunch of players trying to do something. I feel kind of bad for them in a way. But now you got the Bills against the Jets. The Bills should win that game. And then you guys go against, as Jack said, the 49ers, a great front four, good running game. Garoppolo is the quarterback. He's good off play action. They got a great tight end. They got some playmakers on offense. What do you think? I mean, Parcells handled the Chiefs very well, but the Chiefs, he kind of played a pass zone against them. The 49ers can run the ball. What is the key, you think, to the Patriots coming in there and taking one away from the 49ers?
Well, I think they needed to keep their run game in check. You're right. Garoppolo's good off play action and whatnot. And, to talk about Garoppolo for a second, I mean, he's a perfect example of what have you done for me lately. 2 weeks ago, Jimmy G's not the answer. He got taken out of a game. They brought him back too soon. I mean, I blame the team there. And last week he's lights out. He's Tom Brady against the Rams and has a tremendous game, and they win a game nobody thought they were going to win. So stopping Garoppolo, the key to stopping Garoppolo is stopping the run game. And I think, the Patriots have played well on defense. I mean, as badly as they played last week, they did hold the Broncos to 6 field goals. So they bend but don't break. That's been their history. So on defense, you got to stop that run game.
How about offensively, Keith?
But the 49ers are scary. They're getting healthy. It's
this small subplot here that's underlying. If Garoppolo should play a great game, he was being groomed as Brady's, potential replacement, and they let him go. If Garoppolo should play a great game, and he looks like he's on track, some people are going to think, wow, we could have had him still as our quarterback of the future in New England. And does Bill Belichick, he's never done it before, would he conceivably let out a remark, that he didn't want to see Garoppolo go, kind of hinting that it was a Robert Kraft decision, because Kraft he's always been very loyal to Tom Brady.
Sure. It's possible. I mean, I personally, I don't see Garoppolo having a great game this week, though, because, another factor in the Patriots' success this week is, nobody knows Jimmy Garoppolo and his strengths and weaknesses better than Bill Belichick. So you can't discount that in this game this weekend. Now, I think it's entirely possible if he comes out and torches the Patriots this weekend, that Bill will have one of those moments where he kind of takes a dig. I mean, He takes digs at Robert Kraft, and not so much, again, not publicly. It's things that he does. I mean, he's the only probably head coach in the league who walks by his owner in the facility and doesn't even say good morning.
Wow. What is their relationship? This is interesting stuff. What is their relationship? What's it been? Has it changed? Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, they've been together a long, long time. So he can't. I mean, is it a marriage of convenience or what? Well,
there's something to that comment, I think, Jack. And, obviously the whole Brady debacle has put some strain on their relationship. But overall, I mean, Kraft still believes in the Belichick way and that system that Mac alluded to as well. I mean, it's proven to win, and Bob Kraft wants to win. He's not going to fire Bill Belichick just to fire him. I mean, Bill Belichick will walk away when he wants to walk away, and Robert Kraft may make him want to walk away at some point.
Well, after 9 Super Bowl appearances, if Rob Kraft has anything to say to Bill Belichick, he should sell the team and go home. That's ridiculous. So,
you don't hear Kraft really rip Belichick to him, and never in public. And I think their relationship is probably not as strong as it once was. But again, not every employer loves their all their employees, and not every employee loves their boss forever. But they coexist, and I think that's all that matters.
Does Bill Belichick hold a grudge? Taking the case of an Eric Mangini. Mangini recently has come out with statements. He handled things the wrong way. He has regrets. He didn't mean it to come out that way. Now, part of me questions Mangini's motives. Mangini's not in a good place in his career right now.
He's nowhere.
So getting
right?
on Belichick's good side. You never know. If Belichick was very forgiving, Mangini certainly could be a capable assistant again. But does Bill Belichick harbor resentment? Is it just the case he's moved on? He doesn't want to hear about it? Is he forgiving?
Forgiving is not a word I would use. I think he harbors grudges, maybe not outwardly, but I do not foresee. Well, I'll give you a comparison. I don't see Eric Mangini having a chance to come back and being on a Patriots staff. I could see Bill O'Brien coming back and being on Patriots staff if Josh McDaniel moved on or whatnot.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien was a very capable. He didn't have the title of offensive coordinator at the time, just because, as we talked about, I think on the defensive side last week, they don't want to pay, and you give somebody a title, you got to pay them more money.
Sure.
But he was very, very good in that gap while McDaniel was away, serving his time in Denver. But I don't see Mangini, to be honest with you. That bridge, he told him not to take the job. He didn't listen to him. It was a mistake for him to go. And they were just, I mean, they had a good year, one good year, right, Jack, I think?
Yeah, they did. And and then this next season, they were following up. They were 8-3 when they had Brett Favre, and then they lost 4 out of 5, and they were 9-7, and basically that was it. And then they let Mangini go. Even though 9-7, wow.
Yeah.
That looks now, I think.
You know, Jack. You know, Keith. I think in me with my limited coaching experience, a lot has to do with relationships with other coaches. And you see between Parcells and Belichick how that got frayed. They finally got back together. Belichick had problems with the way Parcells handled moving from team to team when they were in the thick of it. And Mangini was given a shot a long time ago. In fact, Mangini is from Connecticut, guys, from where I'm at. And he was brought on with the Cleveland Browns for his first coaching job with Belichick, head coaching job in professional anyway, with Belichick. He kept him with him. And, sometimes, loyalty, I mean, I know everybody wants to go out and do their thing and wants to make a name for himself and to have their own team. But I think a lot of times they kind of fray their relationships and burn their bridges when they really don't have to do that. And I think that's what happened there.
Yeah, the Parcells Belichick relationship has always been an interesting one, and Bill kind of left Big Bill kind of left Little Bill hanging a couple of times. I mean, he ended up in Cleveland because of the delay Parcells took in announcing he was leaving the Giants after winning the second Super Bowl, and left the Jets hanging too as they got stuck with Ray Hanley. And they could have had Bill Belichick, but maybe that would have been a flame out because obviously he flamed out the first time anyway. But even when he came back into the Parcells fold, right? I mean, at that time they weren't afraid. So Belichick came back, and he was the defensive coordinator, his assistant head coach with the Patriots, and also with the Jets. And but what really he knew that Belichick was negotiating with the Patriots. That's what facilitated that whole, I'm stepping down and Bill Belichick is the head coach. Right. And they forgot to ask one guy, Bill Belichick, if he wanted the job.
I get the feeling, I wouldn't know the answer. I mean, only Bill Belichick wouldn't comment on it, I'm sure. That the happiest time of Bill Belichick's career is when he was a defensive coordinator for the Giants. Because, you're dealing with LT, Harry Carson, Leonard Marshall, et cetera. They were like his guys. And Bill Belichick gives very little away at a press conference. And someone asked him about Khalil Mack, and they compared him to Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
He slipped up. He says, we're talking about Lawrence Taylor here. And then Belichick, it's like he caught himself saying, look, I don't want to expand this conversation. But more or less he was saying, how can you compare anyone to Lawrence Taylor? That's what he was thinking, then. So it was like they were his guys, his unit. That's all he had to concentrate. And they were wildly successful under him.
Well, I think, he doesn't necessarily come out and say those are the best times of my life, right? But he comments enough about how much he enjoyed that part of his career and those guys. That it's obvious that's, a big part of
But
one
the
of the best times
ego's
of his
still
career.
there.
Yeah.
The ego's still there. He said Lawrence Taylor was the best player, he ever saw. And then in the next breath, he said, well, I'm sure maybe I could find a way to stop him. But he's unbelievable. He loves Lawrence Taylor, but I can stop him one way or the other. I'll figure it out. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out.
I'm sure that Bill would have enjoyed the challenge of trying to stop Lawrence Taylor.
And I think Lawrence Taylor would have enjoyed that challenge too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, we want to thank you for coming in on your weekly visit. I mean, it's always fun having you on here. And I hope you're doing well with your podcast at TG. Sorry, my mouth is going fast.
TGI Sports Talk.
TGI Sports Talk. Check it out, folks. Check out his podcast. It's always entertaining, always informative. And again, thank you, Keith, and hopefully we get you
Thanks,
back.
Keith. Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Watch the Ian O'Connell interview from this morning. I had to tape it last night. We had a few technical difficulties this morning, but we got through it, and it's really an interesting look into the Belichick Brady Kraft.
We'll definitely check it out, and
Yeah.
we encourage everybody out there listening and watching to check it out too. Again, thanks, Keith Engle. You have a great day, and we'll see you next week, sir.
Great weekend.
Thanks,
Good luck with the Bills this weekend, Jack.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah. Listen, you know you're rooting for the Jets. You're
Of course I am.
harder
Of
than
course I am.
There's more at stake for you than there is for me.
I agree. I agree. So you will feel me rooting for your team this weekend. I don't know if it'll help you, but I'll be there.
All right, Keith. Have a great one, my friend.
Okay, guys.
So there you go, the great Keith Engle with his TGI Sports Podcast. Guys, I encourage you to go out there and check it out. We always like having people on here that have a lot of knowledge about the local teams, and Keith sure does that. Jack,
let me tell you, Mac, anything with a broadcaster, it's people don't realize how important it is the team's success to a broadcaster doing his job. Because imagine you covered the New England Patriots for the last 20 years. Imagine that. You cover them for the last 20 years, you've had a lot to talk about.
Sure.
It's a lot of fun as opposed to covering a losing team that's always rebuilding, that's boring, that's not that good.
Yeah.
And it's like going to work. You
Yeah.
want to go to a good work environment where you loved it. And I think I mentioned Al Michaels yesterday when he was the great Al Michaels. When he started out his career in broadcasting, he was the play-by-play man for the Big Red Machine, the Cincinnati Reds.
Right.
He took a better contract offer financially to go to the San Francisco Giants. So he went from a perfect situation, packed ballparks, great team, so much going on, to a windy, cold stadium, to a bad team.
Right.
And to show enthusiasm coming into work day after day, you know, it just was so much harder.
Right.
And Keith, I mean, good for him. He has so much with New England and going on, and it's
All right, Keith. All right, Jack. Let's get to a
situation.
commercial, and then we'll be back on the other side with some This Day in Sports History. So we will see you all in a few minutes, and we'll be right back. And again, thanks to Keith Engle for coming on and having being our guest today.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Howard get killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle, some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org. We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
and adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Yes, sir. We're back from our quick break, folks, and we just had the great Keith Engle on, Patriots Insider. He has his podcast at TGI Sports covering the Patriots. And Jack, we got like 9 minutes left, so I'm going to get through these updates and this day in history here, and we'll try to get this in before we get off. So, Jack, in 1964, future heavyweight champion Joe Frazier dominates Hans Huber for the gold medal in boxing. So that was interesting. I didn't realize that Joe.
Olympics.
Yes, I didn't realize he was a
Tokyo
gold
Olympics.
medalist. Yeah, I know he fought it. I didn't know that. So in let me see, in 1920, a Chicago grand jury indicts Attell, Chase, and Burns into the Chicago Black Sox World Series scandal, and that was a big thing back then, where they actually stepped in and with the government and took care of that. In 1921, Packers played the first American professional association game against the Minneapolis Mariners, 7-6. The APFA eventually became the NFL. In 1967, New Jersey's Americans, later called the New Jersey Nets, played their first ABA game. In 1983, New York City Marathon runner in the 14th, I don't have his name here. I messed that up, Jack. But it was the New York City's Marathon's 14th marathon. So that was in 1983.
Wait. 1983, the New York City Marathon was won by Rod Dixon. He
You are correct.
Scott Smith by 9 seconds. He caught him at the end of the race. I know I ran that race, but Mac, I was back in the pack.
You didn't
saw
play
those guys an hour later. So,
Did you?
I remember it was no more than an hour later. It was a rainy day. I'll tell you about it after.
At least you didn't catch it.
My
Remember,
body shut down at the halfway point. This is a true story. I
Right.
was looking to catch a cab because my body shut down. I started too fast. It was in the rain. I didn't have a chance. I was on my feet long before the race. I had no shelter. I was cooked. I was done. I couldn't catch a cab, so I actually had to finish the race to get back to line. Yeah.
Didn't somebody actually do that? Didn't they? Somebody in some race, I don't know if there's a marathon or not, New York City Marathon, but didn't somebody actually take a cab, go and
Ruiz in the 1980 Boston Marathon cheated. You know, they knew because they have checkpoints where they could see, and she wasn't at any of the checkpoints at all.
Right.
You know, and she just snuck in at the end. You have fakers in the 1972 Munich Olympics, where Frank Shorter won the gold medal in the marathon. As Frank Shorter is entering the stadium, the marathons used to finish up at the stadium at those times. Well, listen to me, Mac. This is good stuff. More important than the following birthdays. As Frank Shorter is entering the Munich Olympic Stadium, then he hears a big roar from the crowd, and he thinks there's a field event going on, the discus, the shot put. That's why the crowd is cheering. Then he enters the stadium, and people are quiet. They're not cheering for him because an imposter cut in before him and is running around the track. And finally they figure out, the authorities, that the guy was a complete fake. So over the last 200 meters, they cheered for Frank Shorter, but his gold medal winning triumph was a little tarnished.
Sure.
You know, it was him getting the thrill, of victory.
Sure, getting that audience clapping for him, I can imagine. In 1996, down 6-0, the Yankees set a record scoring 8 runs to beat the Braves. And I remember that game, Jack, it was yesterday.
Yeah, that was Jim Leyritz, the 3-run homer to tie it up, hitting it to left field. It barely cleared out, and the comeback from that deficit 6-0, Atlanta would have gone up. That was the 4th game, right, Mac?
I think it was the 4th game, Jack.
They would have gone up 3-1 in the series.
Right.
And it would have been hard for the Yankees to come back. That tied it up 2-2. Then the Yankees won the next 2 games. And that started their run of winning 4 out of 5 World Series. Yeah.
In 2000, Jack, a Monday night miracle. You might remember this. The Jets down 37 at the end of the 3rd quarter, score 4 touchdowns in a field goal to beat the Dolphins in overtime 40-37. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah. I mean, one of the nice highlights in Jet history. One of the nice highlights, yeah.
Birthdays today, Jack. In 1962, the same year I was born, Doug Flutie was born, a quarterback that won the Heisman Trophy in the last seconds of a championship. To me, was a very underrated quarterback. He had a lot of teams that he really played well for, including the Bills, who he took to the championship. And when I think his name was Johnson, was his last name. When he got healthy, they put in Johnson, and the Bills lost that championship. And I was kind of happy that happened because I think Doug Flutie deserved the chance to play that.
Whatever happened to Flutie Flakes?
Yeah, whatever happened.
Cereal.
That
Flakes. If you're in Buffalo, you could buy it.
That's on the shelf with the Reggie bar, Jack, right now. So, in 1979, Jorge Solis, Mexican boxer, former super featherweight champion. He was born in 1979, Jack.
Man, Mac, you couldn't, on the most hardcore boxing websites, they won't mention that. I mean, I'm speechless. I've heard of Jorge Solis, so on. He fought a while ago.
Yes.
Got to refresh my memory what he did.
Well, Jack, I love it when I come in here and tell you things that you don't know. It's great.
Yeah.
And, of course, the great soccer player Pele. He was born in 1940. He scored something like 2,100 and something goals in 3,000 and something games. He probably put soccer on the map when it comes to the United States. Incredible player and a gift to soccer. He was an incredible athlete.
Well, I went to see Pele play a number of times when he came to the New York Cosmos, who played their game, in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. And I remember the first big game where the crowd started coming out. 62,000 people came out to that game, and I went to that game where the Cosmos, I believe Pele scored 3 goals that game, where the Cosmos won 3-1. And Pele, at one point, he, along with Muhammad Ali, were the 2 most, recognizable people, on the planet.
The world. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't really follow soccer, Jack. I'm not a big soccer guy, but I'll tell you, I know Pele, and I did watch highlights, and the man was incredible. So, folks, that's it for our show today. As I told you, my thought for today, tomorrow the show will not be on because I am going to a funeral of one of my relatives who passed away, and I handled the production and all that stuff. So the show won't be on Saturday, but we'll be back Sunday, and we'll have on fantasy expert Anthony Servino, who is on Football Fantasy Face-Off. He's incredible what he does as far as in fantasy, and he also knows a lot about football. We use him to do some of the biggest matchups of that Sunday. We also have coming on Robert Palmer, who is Sports Scope. He came in one time with us. Robert Butler. My apology. Not Robert Palmer is the singer. Robert Butler is the one who does Sports Scope out there.
I did a golf would run him, man.
Yes, exactly. And he's a great talk host. He does Sports Scope. I think he's from Tennessee. We're going to have him on Sunday to take a look at some of the games also. He's very knowledgeable, a little controversial. That's why I like him. And he'll be on this Sunday also, Jack. So we got a big football show coming up Sunday. Sorry, folks, we won't be on tomorrow, but please join us Sunday for our big show. And hopefully you have a great day, Jack. And a little music to send you out. This is called Big Band Rock and Roll, Jack. I'm a former DJ, so I have a lot of music in my storage, and this is one of them. It's a pretty enjoyable tune. You guys have a great Friday night, and we'll see you Sunday. And thank you, Jack, for joining me again, and thank you for all our guests.
See you Sunday.
Yes, sir.